Folks, I am really sorry that I wasn't able to be with you in person today. I was really looking forward to it. It was my excuse to be able to break out of Washington and come and see my city of Boston and a lot of normal people. But instead, I am stuck here in the United States Senate, where we have about 30 votes this afternoon on the Farm Bill. It's what we call a vote-a-thon, a marathon of votes, and it's probably the single most ridiculous exercise we engage in. But it happened to fall on today, and I beg your forgiveness. Needless to say, since bio is the ultimate victory of innovation, maybe it's appropriate that I join you today through the miracle of modern technology. The video that I gather preceded my remarks was a wonderful tribute to my friend Ted Kennedy, who was your friend too. And I know that Vicki Kennedy is there with you. Hello, Vicki, and I'm pleased that we can all join together to honor the work of Ted through the launch of the Biomedical Innovation Fund. Thank you for doing that. It's important. You know, Ted once said that all of us will live on in the future that we make. And I think the pregnant question today is, what future are we making? That's the question that your industry is wrestling with, and frankly, it's the right question. When you think of our country's economy over 200 plus years, there's been a remarkable transition. You know, when George Washington was first sent to map out and survey the forests of Appalachia, he found an ecosystem that was already there. He saw trees hundreds of feet high that could provide the masts for England's tall ships and their navy. And it wasn't hard to connect the dots between those natural resources and the economic boom to come. But that is definitively not the economic world that we live in today. Now, our greatest economic resources, contrary to what some people think, aren't in the ground or the hills or the forests. They're in laboratories. They're in research universities. They're in the minds of creative people, many of you sitting there today. That's the new economic ecosystem. And there are millions upon millions of jobs and billions in profits worldwide connected to tapping it. Any scientist worth their salt knows that an ecosystem depends on balance. And for you, it depends on the balance of investment, research, regulation, education, skills. That's the new innovation ecosystem. I think we understand that in Massachusetts better than in any state in the country. And it's not an accident that we're a world leader in innovation. We purposefully crafted an innovation ecosystem with substantial public investment and built off the cutting edge of research institutions in our state. The major commitment to this investment began in 2008 with Governor Patrick's 10-year, $1 billion package of state resources that were committed to spur growth in biotechnology. And it was an investment that made particular sense because we have a greater percentage of residents 25 years or older who hold at least a bachelor's degree, more so than any other state in the country. In addition, Massachusetts is the second highest recipient of funding from the National Institute of Health. So that's our ecosystem. And our challenge is to keep it and grow it and guarantee, at least in our hopes, that Massachusetts becomes to biotech what Silicon Valley has become to computing. To do that, we can't just sit around and pat ourselves on the back and talk about the assets that we were lucky enough to have in the beginning in Cambridge, in our laboratories, at MIT, Harvard, UMass, all our other colleges and universities. In fact, because of our success, the rest of the world is now looking at us and saying, how do we overtake them? So if we want scientific innovation to thrive in the United States, and believe me, I do, we need an ecosystem that includes the right mix of tax incentives, serious investment in medical research, strong market protections for innovative products here at home and abroad, and a predictable and science-based regulatory system. That means that we need reality to match rhetoric and policies to match promises. You know, every single one of you, what it takes. One of the things that I'm most proud of that we accomplished in the Affordable Care Act which is obviously on the line right now in these next few days. But one of the things that was most important was the creation of the Therapeutic Discovery Project Program in order to provide tax credits and grants to help small biotech companies become the pioneers of the scientific frontier. Already, these tax credits have helped to create and sustain high-quality, high-paying jobs, and they made us even more competitive in life, biological, and medical sciences. But now, my friends, we're stuck because regrettably, amazingly, this tax credit expired on December 21st, 2010. And thanks to Washington gridlock, thanks to ideological extremists, a group of ideologues who create chaos and then blame other people for the chaos, they simply let this tax credit run out, and they've been willing to leave you in the lurch. We have been fighting tooth and nail to get this credit extended. We're trying to give you the certainty that we know you need, but we need you to join this fight and help bring common sense back to the United States Congress. We need you literally to organize and work and pressure and leave Washington no choice but to restore your tax credits so that biotech companies across the nation can develop the next generation of medical breakthroughs. Now, let me emphasize that just as the innovation ecosystem has to encourage risk-taking and investment, it also has to provide a predictable and science-based regulatory system to ensure that discoveries in the laboratory are safe for the medicine cabinet. And to that end, I've worked with my colleagues to help strengthen our regulatory system earlier this year. And I literally can't wait to win the final vote on the Senate floor, which we will, and get this bill to the President's desk for his signature next month. The new user fee agreement is going to modernize and accelerate the approval pathway, and that's going to help us bring your innovative products to market faster. One other thing I want to mention, and that is that I've worked hard to bring venture capitalists and other investors down to Washington, and we've met with Secretary Sebelius and with Peggy Hamburg and others in order to talk about how we accelerate the FDA process and provide the certainty in the FDA process that is critical. We can't have companies literally paying out, in one instance, $16 million over 4 months just to keep the process going so that they can get a decision. And frankly, getting that decision also means we've got to be able to keep well-paid, well-qualified people here doing this job so that they can accelerate these decisions for you. And another thing that I really can't emphasize enough, and that is that our country's health and economic well-being is directly dependent on the investments in research. Today, the National Institutes of Health invest slightly more than $30 billion in medical research, and it's a powerhouse driver of economic activity and jobs, supports probably about 432,000 jobs across the country. But where are we heading when it comes to those kinds of bedrock investments in the future? Despite everybody's simple talk, easy talk, quick talk about investing in the future, for 9 years in a row now, annual appropriations to the NIH aren't going up, they're going down. 9 years in a row. That's not a line item, that's a disgrace. Now, I've seen this movie before, as many of you have. We're the country that invented solar panel technology, wind power transmission technology, but guess what? China, Germany, Japan took our technology, and they're the one building the industries. We're being left behind. I can promise you that because of that history and because of what I've seen happen, I'm going to do all I can to help prevent that from happening in biotech. But we need your voices. We need your involvement if we're going to be able to live up to our commitment in order to lead. We've got to wage and win this debate about priorities. Even as we see increasing global competition in the life sciences, there are still people in Congress who pretend that we can just balance the budget by gutting investments in research and innovation. And they steadfastly refuse to raise any revenue at all, not even $100 from the wealthiest people in the country in order to invest in research. Please, I'm asking you to help us to make it clear to them. Congress can't balance the budget on the backs of innovators, and America can't cut its way to a balanced budget. We need to grow our way there. And also, we need to make it crystal clear very soon, because we're losing ground today, and losing that ground today is obviously going to hurt us tomorrow. Well, other countries get it. China has pledged to invest $300 billion in biotechnology over the next 5 years. And China is not the only country investing in life sciences. Korea's government invests 7 times more as a share of GDP compared to the United States in the pharmaceutical industry. Performed research. I mean, this is craziness. Singapore invests 5 times more, and Taiwan invests 3 times more. So as important as public investments are, we also need the appropriate and strong protection of intellectual property here at home and abroad. And that's why I fought to include the 12-year biologic exclusivity in health reform. And I have worked, and I will continue to work, to make sure that this 12-year window is not narrowed down, certainly not, I promise you, while I'm in the Senate. I've also worked very closely with Senator Hatch to emphasize the importance of intellectual property protection in our international trade agreements. Together, we've led a large group of bipartisan senators to fight for the strong protection of these things, including the agreement that is currently under negotiation, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's also important, my friends, to remember that as we debate protection periods for intellectual property, we should also balance fair access to today's medicine with the right economic incentives in order to produce tomorrow's cures. I think all of us should agree that foreign governments should not be allowed to appropriate American intellectual property. That's a pretty simple principle. And if you get sick in China, excuse me, of course you ought to have access to the treatment which was developed in the United States, but that doesn't mean that China ought to be able to mandate the transfer of intellectual property to its government as a price for doing business in that market. That's not a fair price. It's extortion. And I can tell you, we're not going to stand for it. Now, we need to work also to create an international consensus on a common sense policy which will allow both innovation and business to flourish. We have to work with leaders in other countries to encourage collaboration. Obviously, this is going to be a long and complex conversation, but ultimately, I think it will express itself in the language of future trade agreements and international treaties. We're in this for the long haul. I want to make that very clear to everybody. We are going through an enormous global transformation in the marketplace today, unprecedented in its scope and scale and its difficulties. In only a short period of time, there will be 9 billion people on this planet, up from the 7 of today. And the only way to survive in this new reality is going to be global collaboration, new ventures, new ways of thinking. I'm convinced that the United States can work with developing and existing markets in order to make certain that we are able to win in this new marketplace and to help lead the way as we have in the past. I think we can do it in a way that keeps faith with our values, because ultimately, I know that what really motivates you is the science itself, the saving of lives, the impact on people. Yes, you can make a lot of money. Yes, it is possible to create a business. All of that is exciting. And through your education and life endeavors and work, you can build some of the most successful businesses in the world. But the greatest thing that you can do is cure a disease and provide limitless possibilities to other human beings. I know that in the room today is the next big idea, the next cure of tomorrow. It's in your labs, it's in your heads. And now we have to do the work together to help to heal and to feed and to fuel and to make better the world. Thank you for what you do. and thank you for the privilege of letting me share a few thoughts with you.